Well, Brian O'Connor takes the reins at Mississippi State, but what's realistic in year one? From roster rebuilds to SEC pressure, let's break down what fans should expect, not just hope for. Stay tuned because it might not be what you expect.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com. I'm Jaron, Spor, National College Football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We have a packed show for you today. We're going to talk about the realistic expectations for Brian O'Connor. No, everyone's very excited about the hire, but what's actually realistic for year one? We're also going to give an update on some recruiting news. There's been a couple decommits for Virginia in their recruiting class. Could they possibly coming to Starkville? We'll talk about that. And then we're going to end it with what players are transferring from the Diamond Dogs. There's so far, I think, like 5, unless there's probably some we've missed because there's just so many that are entering across the country, but there's been at least 5 enter so far. We'll kind of talk about them and what kind of impact that will have on the 2026 season. All right, Landon, but first let's get into the realistic expectations. Obviously, when you get a big time hire like this, you want to immediately say, hey, we're national championship contenders. What's actually realistic?
What's actually realistic depends on some of the transfers that come in. Now, obviously, if they get Ford and a couple of those other guys we mentioned on previous shows, then the ceiling raises quite a bit. Mm-hmm. If it's more kind of your middle of the road type of transfer class, keep the solid recruiting class they have, don't lose Ace, Reese, or any other of the major contributors that'll be coming back. I mean, I think super regionals is probably your reasonable expectations because you have to figure some of those guys will be a little bit better because bunch of them are younger guys. Those guys are a little bit better. You have a better, more steady coach, probably a better pitching coach if the Wake Forest guy follows. And I mean, that's incremental increases. It's not the huge jump that we all saw the moment this name was announced.
Right.
That probably comes later. Year one, say you're probably hosting a regional. Best case scenario, you host a super regional.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out when you don't know exactly what the team's going to look like right at this point. We talked about it on, I think it was Wednesday's podcast where it might have even been Tuesday's podcast, but we talked about how this team is losing so many players and key players from the team. I mean, we talked about Noah Sullivan, Pico Khan, there's several, Joe Powell, like there's several that they're losing just to graduation. And so you have to be able to replace those guys, obviously. Then you have to keep Ace Reese, which is the biggest one. Mm-hmm. And Evan Ciari, the way he ended the year, you have to keep him. Like Ryan McPherson. Yes, you got to keep you got to keep these guys. Then you have to add to the team, add to that bullpen. And we'll get to it kind of in the recruiting update, but Virginia had a very high rated pitching prospect who was like number 38 or 36 on the big board for the MLB draft. He decommitted. Now he might decide to go to the draft. Like, I don't know what ends up happening with him. And we'll talk to him a little more, but could you get him to come, to your team? And then we'll talk about the transfer portals. We've mentioned some of them earlier this week about some of the transfer portal names to watch that have left Virginia. Several of the players that have left Virginia have a do not contact tag. That at least makes you think they're following you, following Brian O'Connor. And you would expect, like Ford, for example, if he decides not to go to the MLB draft, Mississippi State would be in great position to land that guy.
Yeah, you would expect him to follow. And I'm blanking on the name, their pitcher, I believe, that not the one you just mentioned, but different, not the prospect, but the transfer. Blanking on his name because there's so many names. So many names flying around. I can't keep track of all of them right now. I'd expect him to follow as well.
Right.
The other thing we could look at is if Wake Forest pitching coach comes, do any of those pitchers follow? Because that's who they have the closest relationship with is the pitching coach, not the head coach. So maybe they jump ship. Maybe some pitchers that he recruited to Wake Forest jump ship. So there's so many variables to know what the realistic expectations are. So you kind of have to go with Well, if everything goes the way we want it to go, what are the realistic expectations for best case scenario in the transfer portal? Or what's the realistic expectation if you kind of hit a double instead of a home run in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think best case scenario is you are a World Series team. Does that mean you're competing for a national championship? I don't know, but you should be at least. I believe, and this goes for the Women's College World Series too with softball. If you get to the World Series, you have a shot.
Yeah.
Obviously some teams have better shots than others, but you at least have a fighting chance. And so I think if everything goes the way you want it to, that's realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The most likely expectation you should have is one you mentioned is a super regional berth. I know a lot of Mississippi State fans are going to be like, that's not the program we are. We're one of the top programs. We need to be a World Series program. I understand that, but it's building blocks. You have to build. We talked about how poorly this last team was coached. We talked how poorly it was really kind of constructed. Now, Justin Parker, even though that they didn't have great depth with the pitchers, he took over a disaster in the pitching room and turned them into a pretty good unit. He just hadn't got them quite to where they needed to be. So we'll see what happens now that he's gone with the new pitching coach. And like you said, if he brings some guys with him, if they add some guys in the portal, but that's going to be a big key, obviously. Hopefully you don't have as many errors when you have a great coach like Brian O'Connor on your staff. But we'll just have to wait and see. I think the realistic expectations is a super regional, but if they get Ford, if they get Valencias, if they get some of these guys,
the other Valencias,
Becker, like if they get these guys, then, and you want to tell me that, hey, this is a World Series team, I'm not going to argue with you.
I mean, if you put Ford and Reese in the middle of a batting order, it's hard for me to see that team. I mean, worst case scenario for a team, assuming pitching does not crater, is a super regional. That's worst case scenario when you have those two.
There's not many better 1-2 punches in college baseball if you get those two.
Yeah, if you put those two guys. So, I mean, we're hanging a lot on the ifs and the if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, but it's kind of where you have to be right now. So, yeah, okay, we've done realistic. What's the most unrealistic? Let's go unrealistic now. Well,
I think unrealistic, it's a disaster and you don't make a regional. I don't see it. I think O'Connor, and again, I know people can say, hey, they were the number 2 team last year and it was a disaster and they didn't make it. I just think he's too good of a coach. I think there's too much talent on the roster. Now, if a lot of that talent says, hey, I'm out, Ace Reese says I'm out, Ford doesn't come, like next thing you know, like, yeah, it could be trending towards disaster, but I just don't see it because of how great of a coach he is. I can't remember who it was that said it, and I wish I would remember it because I can give him the credit, but he said Brian O'Connor is a coach that lives in Omaha. I mean, that's just what he does. And if you look at his track record, that's what he does. And this year was kind of the fluke year of that. And you wonder if all the issues he had with Virginia and them not being all in baseball, did they all come to the forefront this year? And that's why you saw it kind of tailor off. I don't know what ended up happening there. But the one thing I will say, if a player is considering going to the draft, I kind of just always go about that not expecting him to be on your roster. And that's not to say that he won't be, like Ford won't be, and then we'll talk about this kid later on. That's not to say they won't be. I'm just saying I kind of always operate that way. That way, if he comes back, it's an awesome surprise, where if he leaves, you're not sitting there like, what just happened? I thought we had him. Like, I just kind of always expect if he's in the draft, he's probably gone.
Yeah, I mean, I will say with guys like I mentioned with the other in the previous ones with Ford, projected probably, before the season, top 15 guy. Now he's in the 30 to 40 range. That's guy, he comes back, has a great season. He's back in the top 10 range. So
that's fair.
A lot of them, especially now with NIL, if they're not going to be a first round pick or a high second round pick, they're probably coming back because they'll get a decent amount of money at a school that's going to commit to NIL as they would, and in all seriousness, if anyone has read anything about minor league baseball, the conditions you will live in and play in college are most likely going to be way better. So I would not be surprised if he goes 30th, he comes back.
Well, I haven't done all the research, but I just kind of feel like with all the videos and stories I've seen, I kind of feel like this year you're seeing more guys who are rookies getting brought up to the major leagues than I've seen in a long time. Like I feel like I see a video every day of a guy that just got drafted that's getting brought up.
People are moving quicker, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they are very talented players, and I think one of the kids was the 10th pick in the draft. The other one might have been the first pick. Like,
he was 10th.
Those are obvious ones. Like, yeah, like those are obvious ones that are going to probably get brought up. But I feel like used to, they would spend a whole season in the minor leagues and then maybe get brought up. And I feel like now it is kind of different. But I will say Kansas City makes sense as to why they bring him up.
Hey, Kansas City's trying to win and he's on fire. But it is happening more often, but it's more like one every other year unless you're the Angels and they're just a train wreck and they bring up everyone.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, and unrealistic expectations the other way. You nail every transfer. Ford, the Valenciases, and a couple other big-time pitchers come to town, and you dominate the SEC and
your national champs
and coast to the national championship.
Yeah.
Which, if that happened in year one, that would be terrifying.
I might build him a statue.
That would be terrifying for the rest of the world if that happened year one.
They would put a statue out at the dude. They definitely would. Like, I mean, they would be building it, and we might be the ones out there putting it up for them. If they
talking, they're going to start construction now.
Yeah, exactly. But so we'll see what ends up happening. It all depends on how they handle this week with the transfer portal. That's the big thing. But all right, we got to talk about some recruiting updates. We kind of hinted at and mentioned a couple of Virginia players have already decommitted. Will they be following O'Connor to Mississippi State? We'll talk about that. That's coming up next. Well, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. The NBA Finals starts tonight, so you're probably very excited to start putting some bets on that. Pretty safe bet this whole season has kind of been putting the over on SGA's points. He's just been great at that. Maybe you want to put the over on Halliburton's assists because he's an assist maestro. Maybe during the game you want to put an over on a player that's hot. You can do all that on FanDuel, so check it out. If you're new to FanDuel, listen up. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel's official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so we got to get into some recruiting updates. I was kind of looking at the classes, and unless I've missed some, because I will say this website, I'm looking at Perfect Game. They even say it at the top. Like sometimes they don't update it, so it's not always 100% accurate.
But they are the best ones for baseball.
They are. Yes, they are the best ones. But it has Virginia as the number 24 class. They were just number 16 a few days ago, and so that kind of piqued my interest. Mississippi State's still number 9, for those wondering. So that means we haven't seen any decommits from them. But the ones we have seen, Jack Bauer, left-handed pitcher. He is from Illinois. He committed
off from saving the world in 24 hours.
Yeah, right. He committed to Virginia, and he was, I believe, the 36th, 38th best prospect for the MLB draft. He has decommitted. And Sam Rosand, I believe is how you pronounce it. He is from Washington, D.C., and he was committed to Virginia. Both said they're opening up their recruitments. Rosand said that he at least will keep Virginia as an option open in the future. Probably just wants to see who's the hire there and what ends up happening. But both guys, both pitchers, I think Rosand also plays in the field, but he pitches as well. Yeah. And so both would be really solid gets to add to a pitching staff that you're losing quite a bit on.
Yeah, it would. It is tricky. Rarely does a high school pitcher come in and really give you more than like a solid middle reliever type guy, right? Just because that step up in competition is so big from, even if you're playing elite high school baseball, that step up is massive. Mm-hmm. But those are guys you want to get in there. So as sophomores, there's someone you count on. And maybe one of them does surprise you and he has, he can't go 3-4 innings, but he can go one very strong inning and he becomes an elite reliever. That happens frequently because
and that's something they need.
They have the gas to go one inning, but they haven't developed enough to be able to go beyond that. So And then the thing with Mississippi State's class, and I've mentioned it, they have a lot of guys that are ranked in that top 100 for the MLB draft.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a good chance that the top two are not, the top two are not going to be here, just because I'm pretty sure last time I looked, one was in the top 15. Yeah. So I mean, if you're a high schooler that goes top 15, unless they just lowball your contract, you're not going to college. So, I mean, I still think they probably finish somewhere around that top 10 mark, but it's going to be hard to retain all of the people that are currently in the class.
Yeah, and the reason why I was saying they even said that it's not 100% accurate, those guys are actually still listed on Virginia's class, but there is a story from Virginia Cavaliers Sports Illustrated site that says both decommitted. So that's why I say it's kind of hard to tell this kind of stuff. But another name to keep an eye on is Nicky Becker. He's a shortstop. He was their number 3 best prospect, I guess number 2 now that Bauer's gone. But I haven't seen anywhere that he decommitted. But his brother Eric Becker was playing for Virginia, and he has entered the transfer portal with a do not contact clause, which is what we kind of talked about earlier about several guys enter with do not contact clauses. And what that means for those that don't know, it means teams can't contact them unless the player has contacted them first. And so usually when that happens, they know where they're going. That's why they go in with the do not contact, because they don't want to talk to anyone. Yeah. They know where they're headed. And so a lot of times that's following a coach somewhere. And so that would be to Mississippi State. Would Nicky Becker follow him? I haven't seen anything about if he's decommitted or not. He's still listed on the class, but I mentioned those other 2 guys are as well, even though we do know they have decommitted.
Yeah, and that would be huge, which the do not contacts, it seems there's so many.
Yeah.
When you see it in football, when someone leaves, a coach leaves, and you see people go in, there's usually 1 or 2 that put that do not contact on. This is everyone coming from
a lot of them
is putting that on there. So that really makes me think that they really love playing for O'Connor and they want to continue to play for him, which that bodes well. When you have a guy who the good players on a team that underachieved are like, no, we want to come with you. We trust you. That bodes well for the future. So that's very encouraging if they do follow him. And between that and the high school recruiting class that seems to be being put together, this could take shape very quickly.
Yeah, I'm looking at Virginia has 8 transfers right now in the portal, officially in the portal, I guess. 3 of them have do not contact tags. So they're almost half of them have do not contact tags. So a lot of them probably know where they're headed. You would assume that's following Brian O'Connor to Mississippi State, but it might not. It might be, hey, I know I want to go back home, or hey, I committed to this school out of high school, then switch to Virginia. I'm going to go back to that school. Whatever the case may be, you don't know until they end up committing places, but things are looking good there. But yeah, I mean, we said the big thing was keep your class together because it's a highly rated class, and then you have to add any top player you can from Virginia's class.
Yeah.
And if you lose some guys, maybe fill them in with some of Virginia's classes. And so far, good news. It doesn't seem like you've lost any. At least I haven't seen it reported anywhere. I'm even looking at the Mississippi State tracker, and it doesn't have any listed right now. So as long as that's up to date, there's none listed. And so that's good news. And then, like I said, if you can add some of the guys from Virginia, you could be cooking here. And I will say this, I don't expect everyone from Mississippi State's class to stay, because what Brian O'Connor and his staff have to go through that class and say, do we want this guy? Do we not want that guy? Does he fit what we do? Does he not fit? Like, they got to go through the process too. And those guys might also need to go through the process of, do we want to play with this for this coach? A lot of them stay committed, have those conversations with the coach, find out if they want to stay or not, and then decommit or stay, whichever.
Right. And I was just double checking. And yeah, the top recruit in Mississippi State's class, Joseph Parker or JoJo Parker, Mississippi boy. Keith Law has him ranked number 9.
Yeah.
In the MLB draft. That guy's probably not coming. Although his brother, also in the class, Jacob, 3rd ranked recruit, he's ranked a little bit lower. So maybe they want to play some baseball together in college, play for Mississippi State. Right. Maybe that gets there. We'll see. And then I was just kind of scouring Wake Forest, their top recruit in high school, left-handed pitcher. And if the pitching coach comes, maybe he follows the pitching coach.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of breadcrumbs that we can kind of follow to see the guys who there's a path to Starkville.
Yeah. I think you'll see several guys in this recruiting class for Virginia end up coming to Mississippi State. And then coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the transfers that we think will come as well and what players are heading out of Mississippi State and how much that affects them. That's coming up next. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so we got to go through some of these transfers. Mississippi State has had, as of now, again, if this and these things change, so by the time this comes out, it could be 30 guys, but knock on wood that that's not the case.
Decide to come back.
Right. As of right now, there are 5 guys that have transferred out. That's pitcher Gavin Black, outfielder Landis Davia, shortstop Dylan Cupp, pitcher Wes Pritchard, and pitcher Makai Grant. So what's kind of your thoughts on the early 5 guys that have entered so far?
I mean, it's not anyone that heavily contributed to this year's team. So it's not anything that you're like, oh no, we lost that guy. Right. I will say, Davila, Cupp, Black, those are guys who, you thought there could be more to what and Pritchard, all those guys are like, maybe this year they take the step. They become a little bit bigger contributor because they were younger. Grant, dealt with injuries, had, I believe it was Tommy John surgery, missed his whole freshman year, pitched 8 innings. I believe the report is that he left before Lamonis did. So, I mean, he hasn't been around the team for a while. So, I mean, that one was coming. He's just now officially filing the paperwork. So it sucks to lose those type of guys because those are guys you hope that, were highly thought of when they got here and they just hadn't got a chance on the field yet. So not any immediate losses, but could be a loss.
Yeah, Black has appeared in 13 games in his 2 seasons. 12 of those was in 2024. He had a 5.93 ERA. He only made 1 appearance this year, pitched 1 inning, allowed 1 hit. Davia, he mainly as an outfielder, obviously. He was a freshman. This was his freshman season. He batted .167 and only 6 appearances and 6 at-bats. Cupp had been here also 2 years, was kind of up and down, 2.58 his freshman year, 2.82 this year, his sophomore season. He had 151 career at-bats. He had 41 hits, had 1 home run, 28 RBIs. So he's probably the most, productive one, obviously, of the group. Pritchard, he was a standout pitcher at Lamar School here in Mississippi. And he was kind of a late addition to the class, if people remember. He was originally going to go to East Central Community College, but a late opportunity kind of opened up at Mississippi State, and that's why he came over. I don't show any stats for him at all, so I don't remember him ever pitching these last 2 seasons. And then you mentioned Grant as well. For his career, he appeared in 8 games, had 1 win, had a 5.40 ERA, pitched 8 innings, allowed 6 hits and 5 earned runs, 9 base on balls, 17 strikeouts. But yeah, so he didn't play a whole lot either. So a lot of guys that didn't play a whole lot. Cupp obviously was the one who played the most, but no one else really played a whole lot.
Yeah, it's kind of your depth guys that maybe they're the next one up. Like after this class graduated, those are the guys you were kind of hoping would be able to step up. And they're ready to go take a shot somewhere else. Maybe with O'Connor coming in, I mean, I believe 2 of them actually entered the portal before O'Connor was officially announced. So maybe they decide to come back because of who the coach is. Maybe he talks to some of them and they end up coming back. Who knows what's going to happen right now? I mean, transfer portal, I've said it so many times, it's not a real word anymore. It changes so much. It changes by the second. So all these guys can be back. 10 more guys can be in 5 minutes. It's just a wild world right now.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. And then there's been several Virginia players in the portal. We've talked about them pretty much all week. Henry Ford is obviously the big one. Valencia's the pitcher is also another big one. Becker entering is a big one. So those would be the guys I would kind of keep an eye on. Obviously, all of them are possibilities, but those were kind of the ones that if you can land those, that would be very big for your team. And then Valencia's brother that Landon talked about, he was at Illinois, I think, and he entered. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Illinois or Indiana, but he entered as well. So we'll see what shakes up there. But thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. That's Landon. We got an exciting show for you tomorrow, so don't worry and check it out, because if you've been missing out on the football talk, we're going to have a lot of football information tomorrow. We're going to talk about a little bit of Mike Leach. We're also going to have some recruiting news for football that we're finally able to get to, so don't miss out on that. We always post a comment here in our YouTube section. We love the feedback on that. We try to comment on everything. We had someone call us out and say we haven't been commenting as much. I feel like we have, but also just want to let people know this weekend was kind of crazy. This past weekend, Landon was moving.
I was moving.
Yeah, I'm getting married in July, and so right now we finally have hit the big. You have a shower this week, and you have a bachelor party that week, and shower that week. Like we've hit that point, and so just a lot of things going on. But we try to make sure we have time. And take some time to comment.
Because we appreciate you all taking time, joining us, commenting, liking, all of that.
Yeah, and we love the interaction with you guys. It's a lot of fun for us, and so we post that. We also post a poll. It's a separate question. We love your feedback on that. And if there's any topics you want to talk about this off season, let us know in the comments below, and we'll definitely try to get to those topics as the season goes on. But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.